Hi everybody, Rima from Eureka Fabrics here in the fifth installment of our Successful Sewing series. This is a series where I help you get out of your head and take a few easy steps so you can make the clothes that you want that will fit you and that will become the faves in your closet. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 4, you can find them in our Successful Sewing playlist. Give those a watch and be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next one. If you've been struggling with making clothes or you're overwhelmed with the idea of diving in or diving in again, I think this series could really help. Today, we're going to talk about understanding the instructions that come with patterns. Let me say one important thing that's going to make you feel so much better. It's not you, it's them. Chances are those instructions are awful. There are two main reasons why. First, if you're buying from an indie pattern company, it's entirely possible that those people have designed a great pattern or not, but they don't know how to write instructions. Pattern design and technical writing are not the same skill. So maybe the pattern is great, but they're not great technical writers. Or maybe the pattern is as awful as the instructions. You won't know until you test that pattern. Nothing against indie pattern companies here. I mean, heck, we're an indie pattern company ourselves. Some of them are great. I would say, as a general rule, do buy patterns from indie companies who are known for designing apparel. But if 90% of the patterns they offer for quilting or crafts, I would say maybe steer clear of their clothing patterns. They might be genius crafting or quilting designers, but clothes are like a whole other skill. My students and I have had some really nasty experience with clothing patterns from crafting companies. It's just not their forte, and you don't want to go nuts working on a pattern that maybe isn't what it should be. Now, if your pattern is from a giant company like Simplicity or Vogue, then you might run into another problem: legacy instructions. They're mixing and matching old instructions and drawings that don't really help you, or they're using legacy techniques that don't match up with how we do things now, or they're using home sewing techniques when a more streamlined factory style technique would serve you much better and it's easier. For example, my number one bugaboo with home sewing patterns is facings. Sometimes you absolutely need a facing, but a lot of the time you would do much better with some other finishing techniques such as binding. Think about it, you almost never see a facing in ready-to-wear clothing. That's because there are just much better, cleaner techniques. I'd say about 90% of the time, facings are just plain silly, and you won't get the finish you're looking for. My other pet peeve is almost all instructions tell you what to do, but not why to do it. This is why we love making video tutorials for our patterns, because we have the freedom to explain why we're asking you to do something a certain way, but also explaining when you have more options. Because in sewing, there are usually at least 5 great solutions on how to achieve whatever you're doing. They might change from time to time depending on your fabric and the style you want to achieve. There's always at least 5 ways. Okay, so what do you do when you want to make a pattern, but the instructions are awful, or you can't figure them out, or both? The answer is to know your order of construction. Most garments will go together exactly the same way. The order will work for you 90% of the time. And because you're testing your new pattern and you're doing a muslin, right? You have the opportunity to practice your techniques and figure it all out before you touch your fashion fabric. Here we go. First, check to see if your pattern has more than one piece for either the front or the back or both. It might be princess line or it might have a yoke, something like that. If so, you probably want to assemble the front pieces and assemble the back pieces before you put the rest together. The only exception to this might be if you're making something with a waist seam. In that case, you probably want to assemble your upper front and your upper back, and then the lower front and the lower back. And once those are all assembled, I'd usually assemble the top and then assemble the bottom and then put them together at the waist. It's usually easier to get all the seams lined up perfectly that way, usually. You'll have to see what's right for you. Okay, if your front and your back are in one piece or you've already assembled your pieces, here's the order of construction. Shoulder seams. Always put your shoulders together first. The neckline finish or the collar. However you decide to do these, do it now so you don't have to shove like the whole garment through your sewing machine, like the skirt of the sleeves. It's just easier to get that neckline or the collar done now. Sleeve cap installation. Yeah, before you sew your sleeve seam or your side seams. This is called putting your sleeve in flat, and it's way easier than setting the sleeve in later once you've sewn the side seams. The only exception to this might be if you're doing like a really tailored jacket. Okay, then your side seams, including the sleeve seams. So you'd start like at the bottom of your garment and so all the way up to the end of your sleeve, all in one go. Super easy. Then your sleeve finishing, like your cuffs or whatever you're doing at the end of your sleeve. Most modern patterns don't have cuffs unless you're doing a man's shirt. And then your hems, and then you're done. Easy peasy. This will work for almost any project you're doing. It might not be what's in your instructions, but I always say that you should read all your instructions before you decide to throw them out. Actually, don't throw them out. Just ignore them when they're stupid or when they don't serve your purpose. Once you understand this order of construction, it'll be easier for you to see where they've gone wrong. Or not necessarily wrong, but just not what you want to do. You decide which order to use. Sometimes you'll do a little of both. But most of the time, this order I just gave you will get it done more easily than legacy instructions. Okay, but what about those details that really scare you, like collars or pockets or plackets? All those scary things. The answer is start with the result you want to achieve. Let's say you're making a top with a Henley placket and you can't figure it out. Well, congratulations, you live in the golden age of YouTube, and there are hundreds of videos out there on how to do a Henley. Watch 4 good ones and decide which way is best for you and test it. And the best news is that now you know how to do a Henley so you can add it in anywhere you want. This also frees you up to change up all your finishing choices. I think the first thing I did when I finally grokked this concept was to move the zipper in my favorite pants from the fly to side because I don't want a fly front zipper. I want that side zipper. And you just because the pattern has one doesn't mean I have to do it. Of course, that means I have to move the opening in the waistband, but that's pretty easy, especially since we're doing a muslin when we try new things, right? Right. This is why I have a giant Pinterest board of videos on how to do single techniques, things like neckline finishes and pocket installations and hem finishes. I've put the link below in the post description. So when you're making a top or a dress and you want to add pockets in, or you'll have a whole library of possible pocket installations to choose from, and you won't be stuck with whatever details came with your pattern. It's almost like modular sewing. Take your basic pattern, just the basic shape and fit, add any details you like. This is not just a coping mechanism for incomprehensible sewing instructions. It's also how you create new styles from the same pattern, like I talked about a few videos ago. Here's a great example. I've been making the same dress for decades. It's our hack pack jumper pattern. When I finally drafted a sleeve so I could give it to you guys and you'd have options, I stumbled on a video from India where they showed how to do a really cute finish. So this dress became this dress with this awesome sleeve detail. Same pattern, same dress, awesome new detail that would earn a separate page in your favorite clothing catalog, and they'd sell it to you as an entirely different dress. But it is, even though it isn't. By comparing the basic order of construction to the directions for any sewing pattern, this will help you decipher what they're asking you to do and, in most cases, free you to toss silly instructions altogether. When you get to the point where you're not sure how to proceed, try a couple of ways to accomplish your goal. Try it a couple of different ways, decide which one is best for you this time, right? This time. I hope this will help you deal with the frustration of confusing or just plain stupid instructions and free you up to get to the finish line on your projects with confidence. Let me know how you feel about all of this in the comments, and don't miss our next video where we talk about our nemesis, the dreaded seam ripper, and how to make it our best friend. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.